Stop. Do not advance one more second. Listen carefully, because the turn of the year is not just a calendar. It's a threshold. It's a passage. It's a door that opens while you smile, toast, make promises, and, without realizing it, lower your guard. And if this message reached you now, do not treat it as a coincidence, treat it as a warning. There are nights when the invisible gets so close it almost touches the skin. The night of the turn of the year is one of them. It is when the human heart gets distracted by fireworks and music, and spiritual decisions are made with the same haste with which a cork pops. You might find it an exaggeration, you might laugh, you might say, "Oh, it's just New Year." But notice what happens every year. People make promises with shining eyes, and suddenly in January the shine disappears, in February the weight returns. In March, life seems to repeat the same script, and you cannot explain why. It is as if an invisible thread were pulling you back to an old place, a place of fighting, a place of anxiety, a place of tiredness, a place of stagnation. And then you conclude, "It's me. I'm no good. I can't do it." No, not always. Sometimes the problem is not a lack of effort. It is a lack of zeal. It is a lack of vigilance. It is a lack of decision at the beginning, because the door of the year opens, and you enter with an open soul in the wrong way. Archangel Michael, Prince of the Celestial Militia, is not an adornment for a beautiful prayer. Michael is a guardian of borders. He protects doors. He watches over limits. He sustains what separates light and shadow when you see nothing beyond the party. Michael does not appear to scare you. He appears to return your governance over yourself. And that is why I need you to stay until the end, because there are two small, common, almost innocent words that people utter at the turn of the year as if they were nothing. And, precisely because they seem like nothing, they become enormous loopholes. The second is the most dangerous because it comes masked as humility. Before I reveal, breathe, and answer me inwardly. How many times have you entered a new year full of hope, and a few weeks later, life returned to the same place? The same fights, the same tightness in the chest, the same irritation with small things, the same fear of the future, the same feeling that you are always chasing, always late, always losing. Have you ever felt, in some January, a sadness without reason, a lack of spirit that does not match new beginning, an irritation that explodes for any phrase, a heavy sleep but without rest, a strange desire to give up everything? Many people call this tiredness, and it can be. But Michael teaches discernment. Sometimes it is tiredness, and sometimes it is a loophole. A loophole does not begin with a great fall. A loophole begins with small permissions, with small oversights, with words thrown into the air. Because a word in spiritual life is not just sound, a word is direction, a word is choice, a word is a door. And I will prove this to you with a scene, not from a movie but from life. Imagine, the countdown begins. 10, 9, 8. You are with someone you love, or perhaps alone. There is noise, there is light, there is expectation. Your heart, even if tired, wants to believe. In that sacred minute, that minute when everything could be consecrated, you utter a phrase without weight, without soul, without realizing it. A word becomes a signature, a word becomes an invitation, a word becomes a door. And Michael, the guardian, feels the lock. Not with a spectacle, not with thunder, but with presence. He does not need to shout to warn. When you say one of these words, the border responds. Your chest tightens, joy fails right then, and a thought cuts like a clean blade. This is not good. Most ignore it. Most laugh. Most say, "I'll think about it later." And that is exactly where darkness works. Not with big sins at the first instant, but with small permissions, with small phrases, with "it doesn't matter" choices, with later postponements. Now listen with humility. Michael is a guardian of borders, and borders are dangerous places. It is at the limit that war happens. You may be laughing now, but your heart knows. There are moments when you feel you are facing a decisive choice, as if heaven and shadow were at the same time offering paths. Michael appears at these limits. Sometimes he appears as courage to say no. Sometimes as strength to ask for forgiveness. sometimes as lucidity to perceive a trap, sometimes as an enough that is born within you. And that is why 2 words said at the turn of the year can define your year, because they are not just talk, they are a vow. Now I will reveal the first word, and I want you to have the courage to recognize where it lives. The first word, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where I spend the turn of the year. It doesn't matter with whom. It doesn't matter if I pray or not. It doesn't matter if I do it right or wrong. It doesn't matter. Pay attention, it doesn't matter is not freedom. It doesn't matter is giving up disguised as lightness. It is when the soul, tired, decides not to decide. And a soul that does not decide hands the steering wheel to anyone. Miguel teaches that a spiritual border is not lost by noise, it is lost by oversight. And it doesn't matter is the corridor through which oversight enters smiling with an appearance of peace. Do you want to see how this acts in practice? Look at these micro scenes and be honest. How many of them are your life? Scene 1. The table and the silence. You are at a family home. Someone brings up a topic that always turns into a fight. You feel your blood rise. You know that if you enter that conversation, you will get hurt and hurt others. But you also know that if you remain silent with resentment, it turns into poison. What do? You sigh and say, it doesn't matter. And it doesn't resolve. It doesn't forgive, it doesn't talk, it doesn't close anything. It just pushes the dust into your chest. The party continues. But inside you a door remained open, the door of apathy. Apathy is an invitation to repetition. Scene 2, the it doesn't matter in love. You are in a relationship, or trying to build one. There are small things you know need care, talking, listening, apologizing, being present. But you are tired. You are full of wounds. You think, if I care, I suffer. And then you utter, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if he looks for me. It doesn't matter if she changes. It doesn't matter if this works out. It seems like protection, but it is abandonment before the end. And abandonment before the end creates 2 things, coldness and resentment. And coldness and resentment are open doors to destruction. Scene 3. The it doesn't matter with yourself. You know your body needs care. Water, sleep, walking, routine, you know. But you wake up and think, today I don't have strength. And without realizing it, the phrase is born, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I eat well. It doesn't matter if I sleep. It doesn't matter if I keep destroying myself inside. When you say this, you are not just neglecting habits, you are declaring, my life doesn't matter that much, and that hurts. But it needs to be said, because Miguel doesn't just want to protect you from evil, he wants to remind you of the value you have. Scene 4. The cell phone and temptation. Midnight approaches. You promised you would start differently. Less comparison, less anxiety. But someone posts a perfect life, an achievement, a smiling couple. You feel the pang. You think of putting down your cell phone and praying, thanking, consecrating. But your hand scrolls down, scrolls again, and you say inwardly, it doesn't matter, tomorrow I'll stop. The it doesn't matter turns into permission and prepares the later it imprisons. It's not just the cell phone, it's how you treat yourself. Scene 5. The it doesn't matter with God. Someone calls for a prayer, someone calls for a simple act, to thank, to ask for forgiveness, to surrender. And you, tired, say, it doesn't matter, God understands. Yes, God understands. But Miguel warns, understanding is not the same as approving oversight. Heaven is merciful, but spiritual warfare is not naive. When you say it doesn't matter to the sacred, you diminish your vigilance. And here's the part that hurts. Many people say, it doesn't matter, not because they are bad, but because they are wounded. They got tired of trying. They got tired of creating expectation. They got tired of believing. But the wound cannot become a command. The wound asks for healing, not permission to open doors. Miguel does not condemn you for being tired. He calls you to wake up. Because it doesn't matter is the beginning of a year without direction, and you open space, and the later comes to trap. And confusion does not destroy all at once. Confusion destroys slowly. It makes you doubt yourself. It makes you doubt love. It makes you doubt purpose. It makes you doubt God. Now, if the first word opens a portal, the second word creates a chain. And here I need you whole, because this word is even said by good people, by people who love God, by people who have faith. The second word, later. Later I'll change. Later I'll ask for forgiveness. Later I'll return to God. Later I'll take care of my family. Later I'll start. Later I'll stop. Later I'll pray. Later I'll talk. Later. Later seems humble, because you are not saying never. You are saying someday. But Miguel reveals the cruel secret of later. It is the most polite way to hand over the present to darkness. Because life does not happen someday. Life happens now. And every postponement creates an empty space. And the empty space, if not filled by light, is filled by anything. Now see how later imprisons delicately, as scene 6, the request for forgiveness. You know you hurt someone. You feel it. You carry it in your body. You think, later I'll ask for forgiveness. Today is the turn of the year. I don't want a bad mood. And later turns into a week. The week turns into a month. The month turns into a year. And the heart creates pride as a shield. When you realize it, the bond has cooled, and you call this normal. Miguel calls this a chain made of small postponements. Scene 7, reconciliation with family. There is someone in your family with whom you don't speak properly. A sideways glance, an old wound, a phrase said in the past that was never healed. You think, later I'll talk, but later grows old, and an old wound becomes identity. Soon, you no longer remember the cause, but you maintain the distance out of habit. And habit turns into a wall, and the wall turns into a prison. Scene 8, the habit that destroys you. You have a habit that exhausts you. Too much drinking, pornography, gossip, outbursts, procrastination, comparison, anything that steals your peace. You promise, later I'll stop. But later is a comfortable bed for addiction. While you sleep in later, addiction wakes up early and works. It works in your mind. It works in your body. It works in your courage. It works in your shame. And shame is another chain, because those who are ashamed hide, and those who hide do not heal. Scene 9, spirituality left for the end. You feel a calling to return to prayer, to return to confession, to return to fasting, to return to study, to return to service, to return to gratitude. You feel like crying. You feel like starting over. And instead of taking a step, you say, later. Miguel sees this. And what he sees is not just postponement. He sees a heart negotiating with time, as if time were guaranteed. And it is not. Scene 10, the postponed dream. There is something God placed in you. A project, a gift, a desire to build. You have felt this since early on. You feel joy when you imagine, but you feel fear when you think of acting. And then you say, later I'll start. But later does not protect from failure. It protects from success. Because success demands responsibility, and later is an elegant escape. Miguel calls you to the courage of the present. You do not control how many laters you have left. Later is dangerous because it creates an illusion of control. When I want to, I'll change. But the more you postpone, the harder it gets to want to. You don't lose life all at once. You lose it in installments, one installment per day, one installment per choice. Now, understand the difference. It doesn't matter opens the door. Later traps you inside, and the sum of the two creates the worst scenario. You open a loophole and still postpone closing it. This is how the cycle repeats. This is how you turn the year with fireworks outside and chains inside. But there is a way. And this is where Miguel becomes mercy, not just a warning. Miguel does not come to humble you. He comes to lift you up. He does not call you to a perfect life. He calls you to a watched life. And what is vigilance? Vigilance is when you notice the door before someone enters. Vigilance is when you silence a word before it becomes a vow. Vigilance is when you choose light even when tired. Before I give you the practical path, I need you to understand one thing that changes everything. Darkness does not need to push you to wrong. It just needs to whisper later and steal the now from you. That is why these two words are so effective. They do not seem like sin. They seem like tiredness. They seem like realism. They seem like not creating expectation. But in the spiritual world, not creating expectation can turn into a way of not creating faith. And without faith, you become vulnerable to what always returns. There are 3 silent steps that almost always happen when these words dominate someone's life. First, you give up deciding. You start saying, "It doesn't matter" to small things. And the heart loses hunger, loses enthusiasm, loses joy. You think this is maturity, but it is anesthesia. Then you postpone what would save you. You even know what you should do. Pray, ask for forgiveness, organize your life, seek help, face the truth. But you say later, and each later is like putting an extra stone in your backpack. Finally, you get used to the prison. You look at your life and say, "That's just how it is." And this phrase is the point where hope almost dies. Because when you believe that that's just how it is, you stop fighting. Miguel appears before this 3rd step. He appears when there is still a choice to be made. Therefore, if you feel an unease now, do not run from it. This unease may be precisely God's protection waking you up. I give you signs, not for fear, but to discern and cut later at the root now. Signs that a door was left open by oversight, constant irritation over small things, tiredness that does not pass even after sleeping, desire to disappear, isolate yourself, cut off good people, feeling of heaviness in the house, in the environment, in the heart, repetition of the same error as if it were automatic, loss of taste for prayer and at the same time increase in compulsions, thoughts of discouragement that seem not to be yours. Do not be alarmed. Be vigilant, and do not postpone now. And here is an important detail. Vigilance is not paranoia. Vigilance is self-love. It is respect for your soul. Now let me show you how Miguel acts as a guardian with a strong image. Imagine an enormous iron gate at the border of a city. Outside there is everything that tries to invade. Confusion, envy, addiction, fighting, despair. Inside, there is your life, your dreams, your home, your children, your peace, your faith. Miguel is at that gate, and when you turn the lock from the inside, he feels it. And so do you. That is why he does not protect a house that refuses to close the door. Not because he abandons you, but because protection does not combine with permission. And that is exactly what "it doesn't matter" and later do. They give permission. Now pay attention to what happens when you change the words. When you say, "I choose with God," you close the lock. When you say, "now with humility," you put the bar inside. The house continues to face storms, but a storm is not an invasion. A storm is a challenge. An invasion is when the enemy enters and makes a dwelling. Miguel calls you to stop turning challenges into a dwelling place for darkness. And if you want something even more practical, I will give you substitute phrases. Because often we fall into the trap not out of malice, but out of a lack of language. Instead of "it doesn't matter," say, "I will choose with wisdom. I will honor what is sacred. I will not abandon myself. I will not let my tiredness decide for me. I choose the light, even if small." Instead of later, say, "I will start with one step today. I will do the minimum possible now. I will not negotiate with time. I will return today, even if ashamed. I will start over now with humility." Now I know you might be thinking, "But my life is too messy. I can't change everything." And you don't need to change everything. You need to change direction. Think of a vessel at sea. If you change the rudder by 1 degree, the destination changes kilometers ahead. The turn of the year is that moment, 1 degree. And that is why 2 minutes of decision are worth more than 2 hours of empty promise. Now, I will guide you through a simple 2-minute ritual for New Year's Eve. If you do this with faith, you do not enter the year on automatic. You enter with a seal. The seal ritual. Silence before the countdown. Step away a little. Close your eyes. Breathe. Say inwardly, "I am here. I will not live on automatic." Renunciation. Say, "I renounce oversight. I renounce postponement. I renounce it doesn't matter and later." Surrender. Say, "I surrender this beginning to God. I surrender my mind. I surrender my home. I surrender my paths. Request, say, Miguel, guard my borders, protect my mind, defend my home, reprimand all confusion. Decision. Choose one concrete thing you will do in January. One, small but real, and say, I will fulfill it. This is a seal, and a seal changes destinies. Now one more thing. Many people think that protection is feeling chills, seeing a sign, having an experience. But protection, most of the time, is simply not opening the door. And the greatest act of protection is to watch what you say when you are tired. Because tiredness is temptation's favorite time. When you are tired, you want quick relief. And quick relief turns into it doesn't matter. And quick relief turns into later. And without realizing it, you keep signing small contracts with repetition. Miguel calls you to a different relief, the relief of being true. If you are tired, say, I am tired, but I choose the light. If you are wounded, say, I am wounded, but I will not abandon myself. If you are afraid, say, I am afraid, but I will take a step. This is real spiritual warfare. It is not shouting, it is discipline. And discipline at first hurts, but then it becomes freedom. Now yes, let's get to the practical actions. Close the door of apathy. Choose one sacred thing to honor at the turn of the year. A short prayer, a thank you, a minute of silence, a request for forgiveness. One thing, but choose. Do not say it doesn't matter. Break the chain of postponement. Take one decision you are putting off and do the smallest possible action today. A message, a request, an I was wrong, a forgive me, an I will return, an I will start. What kills later is a small step now. Make a visible commitment. Write on a piece of paper and leave it visible. This year I will not live in it doesn't matter. This year I will not live in later. A visible commitment holds you accountable. Choose a renunciation. Renunciation is not punishment. Renunciation is freedom. Choose one thing that you know robs you of peace and say, at this beginning I will not feed this. It could be a person who always pulls you into the same hole. It could be a habit. It could be a type of content. It could be a conversation. Renounce with humility. Ask for help as a spiritual adult. If there is a struggle you cannot win alone, do not be proud to lose in silence. Ask for help. One person, one conversation, one guidance. God did not make you to fight hidden, and if you want to turn this seal into a path, here is a simple 7-day plan to start January with the door closed and your heart lit. Day 1. Silence and gratitude. 3 minutes thanking for 3 concrete things. Day 2. Word cleansing. Spend the day without saying, it doesn't matter, and later. When it comes, change it immediately. Day 3. A small forgiveness. Send a message of peace to someone, even if short. Day 4. A loophole cut. Remove one thing that pulls you down. A profile, a habit, a conversation. Day 5. An act of service. Help someone in secret without announcing it. Day 6. A return to God. Make a longer prayer or go to a place of faith or read a sacred passage. Day 7. A commitment. Write your year's decision in one sentence and leave it visible. It's not about perfect ritual. It's about humble consistency. 7 days don't change everything, but they change direction. Now perhaps you are thinking, but I've made many mistakes. I've promised before. I've returned to the same place. I know, and Miguel knows. That's why he doesn't ask for perfection. He asks for presence. Presence is the antidote to later. Decision is the antidote to it doesn't matter. When the turn of the year arrives, do not let the most sacred minute of the year be swallowed by distraction. If you are at a party, be light in the midst of the party. If you are alone, be an altar in the midst of silence. If you are with family, be peace in the midst of the noise. But do not be apathy, do not be postponement. And if you fall because humans fall, get up quickly. Do not postpone your return. Do not make an agreement with the shadow. Now I want to end with an image that Miguel engraves in the heart of those who understand. Imagine an enormous door before you. It is the new year. Behind it, There are possibilities you do not even know. There are encounters. There is healing, there is provision, there are changes, there are answers. Miguel is beside this door with the sword of light, not to stop you from entering, but to prevent the shadow from entering with you. But he needs an answer. He needs you to stop leaving the door wide open from within. The door closes with decision. So, before the countdown, say one more time, I choose with God. Now with humility. And finish like this. Archangel Miguel, I renounce oversight. I renounce postponement. I consecrate my beginning, and I enter this year with vigilance and peace. If this message spoke to you, do a simple act that seals your decision. Write in the comments, or say aloud wherever you are. I choose with God, now with humility. And do not let the night pass without closing the doors.